bloopers. Hello.
Hi.
5-minute chat. Although you have to go to our YouTube page or our Facebook page to watch 5 minutes of us now because Instagram has decided that 5 minutes is too long for people's attention spans. But we are going to spend the next couple of videos talking about C-section like awareness, treatment, assessment, because April is C-section Awareness Month. So we're going to tackle preparation for a C-section because I think sometimes vaginal deliveries really get a lot of discussion around what do you do to prepare for a vaginal delivery, but there's lots that we can do to prepare for C-section deliveries as well. In fact, we talk about it in our preparation course that we have, and we also talk about it in office when we see people for birth prep.
Yeah.
So what's one of the first things that you mention to people about C-sections when they're coming in if they know that they're going to have a C-section?
So if people know, so if they're having a planned C-section, then we start to talk about, one of the first things they start to talk about is like setting up your environment to be conducive to being comfortable and helping you get as functional and able to move as pain-free as possible.
For recovery, you mean?
For recovery.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
Sorry,
a smart
did you
one.
mean something else?
No. That's one of the things that we talk about. Yeah, I think you're right. Because I remember having like my own little nest that had like my phone and a charger and pain medications and diaper stuff everywhere. And people don't often think about that when they're getting ready like to prepare their house for a baby.
Yeah, and because C-section does like, sometimes it's really uncomfortable to like move around a little bit more for the first few days. It depends, obviously, but like leaning over a bassinet, things like that can be a little bit more challenging because you're being mindful of that incision, obviously. So I think just making sure you have stuff within reach is really important.
One of the other things that I talked about with like my partner and I when we were setting up our home was that there are more lifting restrictions for post-operative delivery. So after a C-section, you're not supposed to be lifting more than weight of baby plus maybe the car seat of baby. And so if I had to get if I wanted to go for a walk, I'd make sure that he had set up the stroller outside the door that day. Or if I knew that I wanted to use like the crock pot that was up on a high shelf and quite heavy, I would have everything set up on the counter before that. So it's just a little bit of planning so that my day, like I had all the heavy items and the more strenuous things out and ready for me. So I didn't have to kind of panic midday and figure out how to do that.
And a lot of things, like if you can initially set up at like kind of like chest to waist level. So like I know people have different levels of like, some people put a changing pad on a high dresser, but you might actually want to bring that down a little bit just so you're not lifting quite as much.
Like kitchen table height.
Like I remember I pulled a desk into our bedroom and I actually used that as the changing table for the first few because it was a better height for me than what our actual change table was in the nursery, and I didn't have to walk all the way down the hallway either.
Yeah.
And I also would sometimes just even have one of those like disposable change pads that I would put on top of the bed because our bed was quite high. So that worked well as well. And having a step stool I found was really helpful in the bathroom, so that if I was like, getting ready and I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable, I could put one foot up if I needed to just kind of like offload. And I had it in the kitchen. I had one in the kitchen too that I found helpful.
The other thing that I hear a lot about C-section are families going into C-section and not really knowing what like a family-centered C-section would look like. So that is absolutely something that you can discuss with your obstetrician gynecologist to see who's allowed. So usually you're allowed to have your spouse or your partner's like some sort of support person that's in the OR with you. They have to gown up and put scrubs on, and they're kind of directed where to stand. But you can discuss things like, do you want to do skin to skin afterwards? Does someone want to be able to cut the cord? Do you want certain music playing in the operating room? Now, each surgeon has their own preferences of what they will and won't let you do, but more and more we're actually seeing different options being provided to families about that. And the other thing that I tell people too is that you should have a discussion, well, vaginal or cesarean, you should have a discussion because it takes about 45 minutes to close up the surgery. So if baby needs to go somewhere, the ICU, do you want your support person to stay with you or go with baby? And I find a lot of couples haven't had that discussion. It's kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that was something to talk about, but that's something that you might want to discuss with your partner as well. Anything else you can think of?
Well, I think we could do a whole other 5 minutes on like physical preparation before C-section if you know you're going to have a C-section, because there are a few other little things you can focus on that could be helpful, especially like upper body and arm strength. But yeah,
so maybe we'll post on that
around
in
5
a month.
minutes.
Yeah. All right, that's all for now. I'm going to climb over this table to shut the again. Bye.